On. Welcome to the news. I'm your news reporter, Ghost Newton John. You can call me Ghost or GNJ. Here we go with the news. My thing wasn't working. It wasn't working. Our top stories for the our top stories. Hamas proposes 135-day Gaza truce with complete Israeli withdrawal. I don't know what any of that means, so I'm assuming that sounds good. Our next I picked the wrong one. Our next story on the news. Kremlin confirms Putin gave interview to ex-Fox News host Tucker Carlson. Good on him. Our next story. Next story. Huh? Yeah. Yeah. Our story. Next. In Israel, Blinken pushes for a pause in Gaza war to allow for aid, regional integration. Things are integrating. Those are our top stories for the world. The whole world. Next up. Oh, I meant an UCK. We have UCK top stories. I picked the wrong one. The first UCK story of the day. London's Old Bailey court to remain shut on Thursday following fire nearby. Fire tends to do that. Especially in London. Our next story. Bank of England says car insurance commission probe not a stability concern for banks. And why would it? Our next story from the Uck. Time is right to step up investment. Sainsbury CEO says it's time to step up. Our next Uck story of the day. Britain sets out dental service recovery plan in effort to fix decay. Teeth are an issue in Uck. So they have plans to fix it. The next Uck story that we have here. Former Uck pop star Gary Glitter jailed for child sex crimes, denied parole. That's a very bad thing that he did. And so get punished for that. Our next Uck story of the Uckland. Uck home builder Barrett to buy Red Row in £2.52 billion deal. That's a really fat deal. Our next story. Uck house prices gain momentum in early 2024. Halifax. Those houses are moving. With momentum. Those are our top stories from the Uck. In the world science. These are our top stories in the news of the field of science. Saturn's Death Star moon has a hidden secret. A subsurface ocean. Why is the moon holding secrets? Does it have a diary too? The next science news. The next news is China opens Antarctic station south of Australia, New Zealand. I'm not a expert, but I'm pretty sure Antarctica and Australia are two different countries. So this story doesn't really make much sense now, does it? Our next story on the science is plans to ship human ashes, drink container to moon sparks legal debate. Now, I'm not sure why the moon needs a drink container. Maybe it's thirsty. Those are our top science stories. In the bright world of technology, here are top technology stories. American healthcare REIT shares jump 7% in Swiss debut. I am just as confused as you are. But 7% sounds like more than 6%. Our next story. Alibaba boosts share new back as revenues miss estimates. It sucks that they miss. It's that they miss it. Maybe they should get a target so that they hit it better. Our next story is US closes probe into 3 Min Hudai. Kia. Vehicles over fire risks. Cars shouldn't Be on fire. So this is good. Our next. Our next. Tech. Story. German court rules against Intel in patent row over chips. Hopefully they're not. Potato. Our next tech story. Our tech story. Snap slups as ad sales lag larger rivals. Some of Snap's rivals include Crackle and Pop. Our story. The next story. Worldline to lay off 8% of its workforce. That's a lot of fired. That's a lot of people who get fired. Our next tech story is Roblox forecasts strong 2024 bookings. In-game spending gets holiday boosts. I'm glad those books are strong. They say knowledge is power. Our last story for the tech is Tesla asks which jobs are critical, stoking layoff fears. Bloomberg News. They have an opinion about the jobs that are critical. Those are our tech stories. If you like if you like being entertained, then you will like entertainment news. There is nothing entertaining here. let's get physical with the sports. Our top story for sports. Japan's Swifties root for Chiefs ahead of Super Bowl. It's nice to have something to root for, especially if you're vegetable. Our next news. The news is Michigan Dick Jesse Minter follows Jim Harbaugh to Chargers. That sounds kind of creepy. Following someone is kind of creepy. Our next story for the next one in sports. Heat race for arrival of Spurs victor Wembanyama. Our next story is NFL Super Bowl 2024. How was the host city chosen, and who are the future hosts? If you want to know the Super Bowl host city and future hosts, you get to know that from this article. Our next top sports story is this. NFL Super Bowl 2024. When is it? Teams, tickets, halftime show, and location. So you can know when is it, teams, tickets, halftime show, and the location. Our last story for the sports Team USA ready to settle in quiet. State-of-the-art training center near Paris. Why is the USA in Paris? I wonder. Those are our sports. Those are our sports stories. If if you have a life and you have style like me, you may be interested in the lifestyle stories. Our top lifestyle stories. Actor Samantha Morton to be awarded BAFTA Fellowship. Good job, Samantha. Good. Next one. The next lifestyle. This one. This is the next one. The Great Contraction hits Hollywood. I wonder what the contraction is doing in Hollywood. Hopefully he gets a better one. Our next story is American fiction stars hope. Film's success is a lesson for Hollywood. These lessons must be important if they are lessons to be a lesson. Those are our lifestyle stories. And finally, business. Let's do some business with the business stories. Like U.S. trade deficit rises slightly in December. I defy you to meet that expectation the same way. Our next business story. Coca-Cola set to gain edge over PepsiCo in Q4 on fewer price hikes. I may just be a simple man, but I hear hikes are good for legs. Good job. Coca-Cola on staying healthy. Our next story for the business is U.S. health inequality grew worse through current recovery. NY Fed study shows. Now, I'm not sure why they're talking about health in business, but as they say, if it ain't healthy, you can't do business. Our next business story. Snapshot. Wall Street opens higher earnings. Policy outlook in spotlight. Opening higher is better than closing lawyer. Good job, Snapshot. Our next business story. KFC parent Yum sales hit by weak U.S. consumer Middle East conflict. Even though the company is called that, this news story definitely isn't yummy. Our next story for the business. U.S. seeks to crack down on real estate, money laundering, and new rule. Good on them for stopping the laundering. Clean money is still dirty money. Our last business story is Wall Street set for higher open as earnings. Rate outlook. Okay. Outlook in focus. It's good to open high. Just make sure you don't close low. And those are business stories of the day. Let's take a look at the globe for the global stories around the globe. In the Americas, like right here, in some of the America stories, we have no plan B to getting Ukraine aid package to U.S. Congress, U.S. Govt. If there is no plan B, there is definitely no C. Our next USA story . Putin gave Tucker Carlson an interview because he differs from one-sided media Kremlin. How does a building speak? Another U.S. American story. But bipartisan border. Ukraine deal looks set to fail in a Senate. If you set to fail, then you fail to set. Those are our American stories. In the mythical land of Canada, we have an exclusive form Prime Minister hedge. Fund pushes coals to sell itself. Thankfully, the concept of slavery is over. So instead of selling other people, you can sell yourself. That's the news in Canada. Down in the South, and by South I mean the center. We have Bacalar, environmentalist surveying Mexico's Maya train. Warns of danger to ancient caves. But thankfully, those caves are sure to be alright. They're pretty holy. That's the news in Bacalar. Down even more south. In Ecuador. Wait. Ecuador lawmakers vote against rising VAT to finance offensive against crime. Now, I don't know what type of VAT will stop crime, but hopefully V stands for vigilance. Those are our top stories from Ecuador. In South America, we have EU. Conditions to complete Mercosur trade deal not met yet. Meeting deals that meeting deals not there yet shows a sign of initiative and drive. Those are top stories from South America. In the complex conglomeration that is Europe, we have some news from the UK area. We just previously went over some UK stories, but here are some more UK stories. UK Pim Snack makes transgender jibe during visit. of murdered girl's mother. Now, I'm not sure what this man has with trans. Trans fats, though, I understand. Our next story is King Charles seen in public and Henry files into see him after cancer diagnosis. That sounds like a very that sounds like a very nice thing to do for someone who has cancer. What a nice guy. Those are top stories. In the Holy Land, that is Vatican City, we have Pope announces hypocrisy of those who criticize liquid blessings. I don't know why he has issues with the liquid blessings. If only we could peer into the mind of such a man, we could understand why he thinks that way. Other European stories, we have some more European stories. In the hungry land of Turkey, I pressed the wrong one. I pressed the wrong one again. I keep pressing the wrong one. I finally pressed the right story. So now we can read it. Hungary's president under pressure to quit over pardon in sex abuse case. If you're under pressure to be pardoned, relieve some of that pressure. Some more Hungary news. EU tells Hungary its sovereignty. Law violates EU law. If laws contradict each other, you should probably fix that. Last in Hungary news, we have this. Polish opposition. Politicians scuffle with Parliament. Security in. Spat over. Status. Perhaps those Polish people need their own security. Those are our top Hungary stories. A little bit further east. We have Russia. Says it down 7 Ukraine launched rockets. 2 drones over Belgorod region. That's mighty impressive. 7 rockets. Red glare. In other news from the east, we have IAEA chief says Zaporizhzhia nuclear plant has enough cooling water. Russian agencies. Sometimes you gotta cool it. You gotta cool it now. Especially if you're in Zaporizhzhia. Lastly, in Eastern European news, Russia launches missile attack on Ukrainian cities. Ukraine's Air Force. Now, I don't know why the Air Force is speaking unless their cities are floating. Those are stories from that region. Lately in the region of Azerbaijan, we have Azerbaijan votes in snap presidential poll after Karabakh victory, crackdown on dissent. Good for you for being in victory, Azerbaijan. A little bit further south, Iraq and US need to return to dialogue over future of coalition force, says Iraq foreign minister. Dialogue is how we engage in more and better communication. A little bit even further south, the wild, largely the widely large Africa. In the Sudan, we have some we have some stories from, like, UN says war-torn Sudan must not be forgotten. Calls for aid, funding. If you need help, it's okay. It's okay to ask for help. The next story, right there. Network blackout cuts communications for millions in war-torn Sudan. If you recall back to the dialogue I mentioned earlier, dialogue helps with communication. So we should probably get some dialogue. Our last story from the Sudan. UN appeals for 4.1 billion to help war-torn Sudan refugees. What's a bin gonna do? Those are stories from the Sudan. In Goma, we have Congolese city, Goma, under threat as thousands flee rebel advance. Running away has always been an option. Fighting only happens if you fight. Down in the southern parts in Zimbabwe, Zimbabwe bets on no-till farming to reduce El Nino impact on grain. I'm one to always support innovation, but how will Till find a job now? And finally, in the southernest part, in southern Africa, South Africa's Ramaphosa to announce election date this month. Spokesman. An announcement to an announcement is kind of strange. Just announce it. Those are our top stories in Africa. An often forgotten part of Africa is Madagascar. Madagascan president's ex-aide offered influence for bribes. London jury told. I guess we found out why he's his ex. Aide. Sorry. In the far eastern parts of the world, we have the immaculate land of Mongolia. Our top stories are Germany and Mongolia enter into strategic partnership. I've heard of crazy crossovers in my time, but Germany and Mongolia? What's next? Iceland and New Zealand? Further into the eastern side, in China, our story. Chinese embassy in Netherlands says China would never allow cyber attacks. That's a good thing. Why would they allow cyber attacks? I certainly wouldn't allow even a heart attack. Our next story. Ant Group quarterly profit falls 92% on year to 24.5 min yuan. Maybe if those ants got a little bigger, they could save some money. Our next Chinese story. China video app Douyin Group CEO resigns to take new role within ByteDance. It's nice for a CEO to take more and new responsibility. Who else is going to do it? The janitor? Our next Chinese our next Chinese story. China's ByteDance says Zhang Nan resigns as Douyin Group's CEO. I don't know about you, ladies and gentlemen, but I'm experiencing some deja vu. Our next Chinese story. China's top chip maker, SMIC, cautions on recovery expectations. Shares dip. It's nice that people are being careful and worrying about their expectations. But it's nice that it's nice that they can do it while sharing some chips and dip. That's my favorite. Those are our type Chinese stories. And now towards the magical land of India. Our top the stories. Small Indian state passes landmark civil code opposed by Muslims. If you're passing the civil code, I'm sure you're able to pass any tests that you want. Good luck on the SATs. But clearly you don't need luck. Our next Indian story is this. Microsoft says will help 2 million Indians in small cities learn OWL skills. It's nice for a company to help out every once in a while. But why do they need to teach them AI skills? I guess the AI is more A than I. Alright. The next Indian story is in India's Paytm shares jump after reports CEO met ribeye finance minister. I'm more of a fan of the T-bone. Our last Indian story Indian rupee to gain slightly this year amid continue RBI intervention. Reuters poll. To grow despite intervention and obstacles is a sign of true strength. And those are our top Indian stories. Over to the lesser known land. Over to the Southeast Asia lie many countries. In Myanmar, Bangladesh will not let in any more Rohingya refugees. Minister. I'm sure the world has plenty of ministers in some more countries in the Thailand area. During Hun Manet visit, Thailand official says won't send detained Cambodian activists back home. Why Why detain people who are just trying to get active? I do that every day. When I walk, should I be put in jail? I don't think so. Our next story. Cambodia PM thanks Thailand for thwarting interference after arrests of activists. Well, I guess my previous point is rendered moot. You can still be active without being arrested. Our next top story. Cambodia PM thanks Thailand for preventing interference in his country's affairs. Not only are active people being arrested, but people who cheat on their wives roam free. That sounds kind of bad. Our last story is Thai C Bank holds key rate as expected as government presses for cut. If you need to if you need to cut your rate, maybe you should just shave it bald. Those are our top stories. In the Malaysian area, our top story is jailed Malaysian ex-PM Najib considering new request for a full pardon lawyer. Something new is not always considered the best. But one must keep their options open. Especially if you're Malaysian. Right. In the center of southern, eastern Asia, the, the top stories shift from El Nino to La Nina portends rain in Asia, dryness in Americas. I'm sure the people in the Americas are kind of thirsty. So maybe they should get some, some quench for their thirst. All right, our next story. Indonesian students to demand president remain neutral. Ahead of poll. You can only demand so much from a person until you realize that they will ultimately make their own decisions. Our next Indonesian story. Who is running for president in Indonesia's 2024 election? I don't know. Well, hopefully we'll find that out. We'll find that out eventually. Our next Indonesian story. Who is running for president in Indonesia's 2024 election? I don't know. Maybe one day we'll figure that out. Our next story. I pressed the wrong one. And now I pressed the right one. Indonesia election 2024. What are candidates policies on key issues. We just mentioned earlier how we weren't sure who the candidates were, but luckily the news moves fast. Our next Indonesian news. Indonesia election 2024. How is the electoral system works? If you want to know the inner workings of the Indonesian government in an electoral systems, here you go. That was a good read. Our next Indonesian story. Indonesia's election 2024. Dates, candidates, and key issues. For all those who want to be keyed in on what's happening in the Indonesian election, this is your time to do it. Those are our stories from Indonesia. Over here into the wacky world that is Australia. Our top Australian news is Australia to allow workers to ignore after hours calls from bosses. Sometimes you don't want to talk to your boss, especially after hours. So hopefully their bosses don't text them. Our next our next Australian top story. China opens Antarctic station south of Australia, New Zealand. I may be an ordinary man, but I'm pretty sure Australia and Antarctica are two separate places. Why would an Antarctican station be in Australia? Someone needs to fire the real estate agent. Those are our top. Uh, those are our top Australian stories. In Papua New Guinea, PNG to assure Australia on security ties during Morape visit. I've heard that PNGs are the better image format compared to JPEGs. So I'm more likely to trust PNG. Those are our top Papua New Guinea, Stories. The most eastern side of Asia, we have Japan. And also South Korea. Our top Japanese stories. Japan Airlines crash. Air traffic controllers call for significant staff increase. More workers are a surefire way to prevent crash. Our last top Japan story is Japan's Mitsubishi hits all-time high on share buyback plan. Cash pile in focus. I bet they're using a magnifying glass. Those are our top Japan stories. In the Koreas, there are two of them. South Korea. South.
Huh, neat.
I'm gonna have to visit Marip sometime.
South Korea's Yoon vows clear rules after wife's your bag scandal. I've never owned a Dior bag before. But hopefully when I do own a Dior bag, everyone will know the rules. Our next Korean story is South Korea, Qatar defense ministers agree to boost military ties. So, military ties are probably really hard to see. Our next story. Beijing calls for positive, objective, friendly China policy from South Korea. I think deep down, China wants some friends. Hey, friendly. Everyone needs a friend. Our last story this is the last one. South Korea's LG Chem signs $19 bin cathode supply deal with General Motors. I've never heard of a $19 bin. I got mine's at Walmart. That's the South Korean news. And that was the global news report of the day. I've been your reporter, Ghost Newton John. If you wish to be in contact with me or hear other things I have to say, you can go to my Threads page, threads.net at Ghost Newton John. I also report there when I will do another global news report on the globe. Thank you all for watching. Have a lovely day.